I started with a rusty piece of junk. And I have to tell you, I had a lot of struggles and a lot of headaches in doing this. If I'd have it to do over again, I wouldn't do it. So follow along and sympathize with me as I struggle to put this thing back together. Here's the wheels, and let's get them put together. First thing we're going to do is run this bolt in here. Perfect. Perfect. Okay, the wheels are assembled. The next step is the twines. Line those holes up. Do this, do that, do this. Okay, the next one is this. Will go on like that. You can see I have these twines put together, and I need to slide them on this housing back here. But before I do that, if you remember correctly, I need to take this off and put sealer on that, and then we need to get some oil in here. And once that's done, we can actually mount these onto the body, and we can start putting the wheels on so we can get it upright to start working on the other stuff. Okay, I have these loose. Let's just pull them out. Got little star washers on them. See if I can get this off again, which I can. I found the perfect oil. This is for my, what is that? Oh, that's for my 2011 front differential. I'm just going to pour some of that in there. It requires just a little bit more. Right, perfect! And if it isn't, I'll take this plug off right there and let some run out, but how can that hurt anything? This is just some leftover stuff I had for some RV sealant. So, since it's for RVs and that's out in the rain, I think that means you could let this sit out in the rain then too. I don't know if you noticed that motor over there, but I did a video where I had rebuilt that entire motor with used parts because I didn't want to buy anything. That actually turned out pretty good. It ran, but I haven't started it since then. And I don't even know if it'll have enough power to cut dirt, but that's what we're going to find out. Let's put the twines on next. That would be these. Let me get that in there. And take a pin. There's holes here that line up. If I can, uh-oh. I got those on backwards. For Pete's sakes, let's take this one back off and see if the other side works any better. Look at that. If I wouldn't make mistakes, I wouldn't get anything done, would I? Now let's see why this is hitting. There's something made wrong, definitely wrong on this one. I figured it out. It's all in the details. It's a wider pattern on one end than it is the other, and if I didn't have these bolted onto this hub just in the right location, they hit. Let's see if we can get this over here. Okay, now the next step I want to try, if I can, is to get the back wheels mounted on. All I had to do is bolt this on right here, 2 bolts, and the wheels went right there. This part is a rod that goes down, a flat piece of steel, and that kind of holds everything back. I want to mount this motor before I go any further with the handles and stuff. Next thing I'm going to do is put some lock washers on there. I made a mistake. This needed to go on first. So I have to loosen all that back up. Let me get that done. Something isn't right with them twines yet. Okay, we have the motor on. That was a little harder than I thought. Now let's look at this twine. See what I did wrong with it. I see right now. That's got to come apart, and I got to switch everything one bolt over. I got this put back together the way it's got good clearance. Everything's lining up the way it's supposed to now. I just put it together wrong. We got this on. I've got 2 bolts to put in here, but I can't do that until I put my belts on. As I started to put this handle together, things didn't align just the way they were supposed to, so I did my best in getting all the holes and the bolts and everything back in the right position in the right place. Quite honestly, it was a struggle from the get-go on putting these handles together, as you'll find out later in the video. I believe this was put together just like that. Let's just clamp that together so that you don't have to fight with anything here. My famous last words, just don't have to fight with anything here. That was all I did was with these handles. In reality, I ended up taking these handles apart a couple of different times, thinking I had them put together wrong, on upside down, different things like that. Next thing I'm going to do is add these braces. I think somebody has actually reworked it. That's more like it. Like I said, I don't think this is original, but it was on here when I tore it apart, so I'm going to put it back on just the way it was. Now, this was like that, and those handles went right down through here and bolted right in there. Yeah, whoever did this, we're thinking a little bit. Got the handles on. I don't know if that's right or not, but one thing's for sure. If it's not right, that means it's wrong. And I've been wrong plenty of times. This pulley here needs to go in just a little bit to line up with this. I ended up going over to the hardware store and getting 2 new belts. I actually bought 4 to test them to see which was the closest to work on both pulleys. I had to go buy a new idler pulley because I was missing one, and I wanted to get it set up so it would work correctly on the reverse. Otherwise, all we had was a forward motion, which theoretically would be correct, but I wanted to get this set up. You see this right here. It's bolted into the frame, and it has a wire going to a lever right here that when I crank the handle, it pulls this and brings it tight. And this, the forward momentum was there, but the reverse isn't. Okay, you see right here is a hole that had a bracket mounted to it that came over here, had a spring hooked to that other lever similar to this one, and another lever attached up on the handles that when you pulled it, it would pull the belt tight and let it come in reverse. Well, this bracket's missing, so I want to show you what I've been working on to accommodate that bracket. I'm not sure if it'll work yet. This steel here is way heavier than it needs to be, but it's what I have. So this would mount right there with a spacer, similar to this, right on there to lift it up off of there a little bit. And then I cut another piece out of that to weld right here, so that when I pull on the handle up there, it pulls it like this. And like I said, this is way heavier than it needs to be, but it's what I had here. So what I have to do is weld this together, put a hole in here so that I have a wire to pull it, and bolt this all up and get these belts so that they're in sync with each other, so that when I put the tension on this one, it goes forward, and when I put the tension on the back one, it goes in reverse. It's the whole idea of the dual shaft in here, and the reason, one of the reasons why I needed a new crankshaft, the size that I have in this engine, and I show that replacement in a previous video. But for now, we're going to go at it and get this bracket welded up, get the holes in it that I need. Here's the piece that I just welded. I have it bolted on, and it will attach to a rod over on the far side. If I can get it hooked, I'll show you. Okay, there I have it hooked, and it'll come into this hole here and clamp down. Then a cable from here will go up to a lever or some kind of a pull handle that I have to make, and it'll pull that tight, and as that pulls tight, you can see that that pulley grabs hold really well. Now that's pulling hard, so I have to make sure I get it tight enough that the tension will be pulled on it, and then when I let up, the pulley will spin freely. Now on this one, it's hooked to that other lever over there on this side, and it'll pull from the other handle up above, and you can see that it grabs real good right there, let up, and it spins freely. Grab, spin. So I'm pretty sure this one will work just fine here on this end. I'm not so sure on this one. I have these parts all painted now. I bolted this back on, I bolted this on. I did put the belts on, and I tested the motor. You may know or you may not know, but I'm 70 years old, and I've had a CDL or a commercial driver's license since I've been 18 years old. You do the math, it's over 50 years. And the way I learned how to drive a truck, my father-in-law had an old International CO 4000, and we went and got a load of fertilizer in Illinois, a little town called Streator. It was Smith Douglas Fertilizer at the time. Some of you may remember that. But as we went over there, he put me behind a wheel to drive the truck empty. It was a 40-foot trailer, and well, I'll tell you what, I was sweating bullets as I drove that truck. Gave me a couple hours on the road time, and then coming home, he let me try it loaded, and I thought I was sweating bullets then. As I was empty, I was really sweating bullets now. That was nerve-wracking. He let me drive another hour or so like that, and I got the feel of the truck. I was 18. But that was on Friday and Saturday morning. The very next morning, or Monday morning, he pointed to the 18-wheeler, the old International, and he said, "Kid, go down to the local feed mill and haul grain to Decatur." That's how I learned how to drive a truck. One night, coming back from Streeter by myself, I thought I turned on the right road to go around the town, but what I ended up doing is I turned into a residential area. And I found myself at a dead end. Kind of like a cul-de-sac, but not really. And I thought, oh my goodness, 4:30 in the morning, this truck rumbling back here in this residential area, they're gonna come here, put me in jail and throw the keys away. What do I do? Well, like a good truck driver always does, he figures out something, and I saw that there was a crossroad or a street, and I backed the truck up, and I was able to maneuver it in that crossroad and turn myself around. It wasn't easy. I say all that to say this. On projects like this, sometimes you find yourself pulling into the wrong road, making mistakes, having to back up and redo. And that's exactly what I've had to do here several times. Not on camera. Now I want to tell you what I've done to be totally transparent. First of all, on these twines, I had them in reverse. If I would have went out to dig with these, you can't dig with the dull side pointed forward. Second mistake is I put these belts on back here, and I thought I'm going to start this motor and see if it runs. And it took me forever to get it started again, but it ran, and it ran rougher than a cob actually, but it idled and it stayed there. And as it was idling, I was fiddling with these, trying to see if it's going to work. And all of a sudden I smelled something. And yes, one of these belts I had on here burned it completely in two. It just wasn't the right size belt. Another mistake that I've made is on trying to get this stuff all figured out so it works. I've tried different things. I think I've come up with a solution that may work, but I'm not sure if it will. Instead of using the solid wire like they had to go to the levers, I'm going to use this cable. I'm going to try to get at least half of this functioning today. One last error, and I had to back up on, is this throttle cable right here. I went ahead and installed it, and I had it weaved in and around back up to the carburetor the way I thought it was, and it just didn't function correctly, and I couldn't figure it out. Finally, I realized that I needed to come overhead with it, and there was a place back here on the carburetor that allowed me to do that. So now this here throttle cable goes clear up here, functions just the way it's supposed to. The first thing I'm going to do, instead of putting a steel rod across here, I'm going to try to fit this spring from this lever to this lever. But it'll clip on right here and hook right there. And I think it'll be out of the way enough that it'll function. You can see I have the spring on there now, and I think that that's going to work just fine. Now the next step is to get a cable from here up to the lever. Let's see if we can't get that done. So I'm going to take the end of this cable right here and feed it up through this eye right there, and just bring it all the way through, and that'll attach just like that. Okay, then I'm going to bring it right up here, and I'm going to loop it in there and put another connector on. Keep your eye on that right there. Well, I got this thing here figured out. I got a cable to it. I made the lever up above, and I'll show you, and I got my belts on. As when I pull the lever up here, the idea is to pull that cable tight, and it pulls a pulley on the other side, It tightens up that belt that makes those twines go in reverse. Not knowing for sure how this was set up originally, all I did was I made me a little lever right here, and when I pull that, it pulls that cable, and I tested it and it worked just fine. But that motor is shot. Let me show you a couple things on it. First of all, I had trouble with this recoil starter, so I took it apart and reworked it. I made a video showing how to rebuild a recoil starter, but the starter clutch inside grabs occasionally and it doesn't let the thing spin the way it's supposed to. So to make it right, I should actually replace that starter clutch. Another thing on this is the carburetor that was on this was so plugged up, and I ran it through my ultrasound cleaner again, tried to clean it up. So I just did the right thing and bought a $26 carburetor off of Amazon. It seemed to work. I had it running, but it doesn't run right. If I was going to reuse this engine, I would have to tear it completely apart, hone it out, new rings, probably a better carburetor, new starter clutch, new seals in each side, gaskets, and even work on the inside of this tank. I had to take that tank off. It was still pretty rusty inside, and I cleaned it up. But when I did this motor the first time, the objective was just to get it to run, and I did. I don't know if she'll start right now, but we can give it a whirl. Let's see if this will start. If it does, I can't let it run very long at all because I'm in a tight shop, and it's, well, this morning it was, what, 5 below zero here. Let's see if it'll start. That didn't sound good. I'll pull the choke out. Nope. I'm going to take the air cleaner off. Let's put just a little gas in there. There you have it. What's happening is this is dragging and this belt back here is dragging a little bit. Let me try it one more time. I don't want to spend any more money on that engine. That's the struggle that I'm having right now. But from what this was when I started to now, it's a wonder it even runs. I replaced that crank with a used one. I had to make shift on some pulleys down here. The belts aren't quite adjusted right. But I do believe that thing would work if that engine would run the way it's supposed to. What should I do with it? What's the next step? That's what I'm asking myself right now. If you want to watch more videos like this, I would suggest you watch this. There's 4 other videos, the process of doing this. And I ask you again, can it be fixed? Sure it can. Can you fix it? Probably better than I did. Until the next one.